what a world. Here I am making a video where I'm going to talk about a video I just watched, which was Nick Buckley, who ostensibly seems like an experienced person. I'm not going to put a label on him and say he's a good man. Don't know enough about him. Strikes me as experienced, knowledgeable, you could say, yeah. He's not nobody. He hasn't just walked out of a university space. He knows a thing or two about people. Talking to Sargon, who doesn't. Not really. And they were talking about Piers Morgan talking to that Mizzy. Ha. The takeaway I got from listening to Nick and Sargon talk about it was there was a really, really good observation made by Nick right early in the piece. And it'd be the thing to take away from that video they made, an important thing. And I mean, it's like the important point, the point I'd see rammed home. Nick Buckley made it immediately. And it's like, this isn't the first time this kid's done this. This is something he's good at. This being interrogated. Like everybody, the police, teachers, headmasters, social workers, everyone's had this conversation with this kid. And he's become good at it. So he goes on and talks to Piers, 18-year-old kid. Goes on, talks to Piers Morgan, is as bold as brass. And it's like, he spots straight away that Nick Buckley, that this guy is a veteran of the crack. As to where, from the way he talks, you can understand what the relationship is like between him and his mother, who taught him how to talk like that. Where did he learn that? Well, learned that off his mother he doesn't talk to, according to him. Bet you anything he lives with his mother that he says he doesn't talk to and has nothing to do with. I bet you he lives with her, but he says he doesn't talk to her and has nothing to do with her. But she washes his underpants. I'll float that out there. When interviewing that kid, Piers Morgan, he's trying to reason with someone who doesn't understand and thinks that people being reasonable are trying to manipulate him. So, oh, you're trying to reason with me, are you? Oh, well, let's see how you get on. This has been tried before, you know. I've had a few fracas with these fucking idiots who think I can be reasoned with. Oh, you're going to try and reason with me again? You're going to try and emotionally manipulate me, are you, to feeling shame? And this kid be like, I might not know much, but I know this game. He'll have had it used on him so much that he one day became a master of it. And then turned the tables on his mother, his master, who created him. And now he's talking about how he's his own man. I've always been my own man. It's like your mummy's boy. Word went out of parents, and he doesn't, no father gets a mention at all. It's like there is no father. It's like, no, he was naturally created, wasn't he, by the midichlorians. He's like a convergence in the force. Kids with no fathers tend to be wide open to anything else. You're better off having a terrible father than none. You really are better having a bad one. Having a bad dad, it's not something that any of us, you know, thrive from. It's not a good start, but none at all. It's a little bit different. You can learn from a bad experience, can't you? You can learn from an oppressive childhood. You can learn from that, and you come out the other side of it, and you can actually make a distinction as to where, you know, I don't like that kind of shit. I'm not going to partake in that. When I move forward, when I move up and these old people die and I get some authority, I'm not going to let people get picked on like I was. You can make that distinction. But then when you see the old disease, when you see that, oh yeah, that insolent kid who's been told he comes home from school one day saying the teachers have told me that you're not allowed to touch me, and that if you ever lay an hand on me for anything, I'm to report you to them and they'll get the police on you. Excuse me? Every kid has had that conversation with the parents at some stage or another. Usually when that kid's not getting what they want, they'll start to mouth off as to say, you know, I can get the authorities on you, Mum. What? Well, that's what they told me at school. Really? Kids are absolutely ruthless bastards, and it's like we go a long way in making sure, you know, it's to raise kids that they don't end up raising themselves, because if they raise themselves, they continue to be barbarians. So what needs to happen is they need to be socialised, and so when this is socialised, usually socialised means getting your ass kicked all over the place. Now, if you behaved and acted out like he did, and you had a father, right? You had a father. First time he witnessed you acting out like that, he'd feel so ashamed that you might just take one of the beatings that he fucking got. He might, by instinct, mirror exactly the same behaviour that was levied onto him, onto you. And you'd fucking know why you got pranked. And they'd tell you, insolence. Blowing people off, they call it, wouldn't they? That's what it means when someone's out blowing people off. It's to go. Look at kids' body language. There was methodologies that are open to, if it's like Piers Morgan hasn't got any clue how to handle someone who doesn't want to be reasoned with, and is an enemy of reason, and knows his old foe well. It's like he's speaking a different language. In some regards, he was cleverly taking the piss with some of his responses. But other things seemed perplexed. He broadcast things on the internet so everyone got to see it, and in the way experience it as live action film. And then he has a problem that people have got a problem with it because they weren't the victims. So no, you just made it our business. You're just a stupid. You've no differentiation in your mind between you and the world. Talks about himself as a leader of a movement. Like, fucking hell, movement of what? Absolute jackasses as to where, if you, the kind of people who would enjoy this guy's videos, you wouldn't want to be in their company. Why? Because they might play pranks like that on you. The best thing that could happen to this kid, in fact, what will happen to this kid, is that he's going to get pranked. And his method of pranking, which is just to pull the fucking rug from under people and do cruel things to them, and then say, what's wrong with you? Haven't you got a sense of humour? It's like, that's like atypical shock, trauma-inducing, abusive behaviour, right? Joe Michael Straczynski, who I talked about, who I spoke about reading his book, if he watched those videos of those cruel things going on, right, I guarantee you that guy would be having like profound flashbacks as to his own childhood, as to what his father used to think was funny to do to him. Pulling the rug from under people, like anyone can do that. It's just straight up just betrayal of someone's trust. It's to exploit someone's better nature. You notice that where he mouthed off to that black woman, she's like, she just immediately saw the game and had seen this behaviour before, and she knew exactly how to deal with it. You shout at them like mama would, and they won't do nothing. Talk to them like mama would. Aloof black woman. I don't give a fuck. You fuck with me. Talking about beatings. I'll beat your ass. And it's a matter of, well, that works, like, you know, with dogs, you know, like when they pups and misbehave. You should always, if you raise dogs, and I'm not someone who's cruel to animals, people, they don't actually have pets, they have accessories and pets that other people look after. But if you raise a dog, right, you don't beat the dog when it does something that you don't want to see it do again. You just hurt it. You don't beat the dog. You don't punch the dog. You hurt it. The best way of doing it is to go like that. Poke with a finger. Small dog. You don't hit him. Poke him with a finger. It's like, it's going to hurt you, this dog. You're going to fucking remember. But there ain't no, you need to be socialised. If I let you get away with doing this, this might be something you do. And it's like you can, as they say, nip it in the bud. Have you heard of something called temperament? Basically, it's an elusive term, but it's something we put to people who've got an ability to handle themselves without getting emotional, to control their emotions. Decent temperament, a lack of an overreaction or panic reaction from someone. Good temperament. Deal with disappointments well. Don't let it be the end of the world. Good temperament. Where that comes from? Tempering. How do you temper something? Well, you beat the crap out of it, smash it and 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 smash it. And in the end, what you're left behind with is something that's strong because it's been tempered. It's been learned to govern its rage by having it fucking knocked out of it. Being knocked off your feet have created an association as to in future what certain conduct might lead you to expect. And having got a slap for running your mouth once might make you think twice. There's a great line in Game of Thrones that's in the books and the show. There's a suggestion of punishment made to Khaleesi. Take ear. Teach respect. Take someone's ear off. Fucking remind them to listen. Instead of run the fucking mouth. Might not be a rule of thumb, might not be the right thing always, but would put an alarm in someone's head as to say, you know what, I run the risk of getting a slap for this, but I'm going to do it anyway. It's like you need some foundation, you need some experience before you start running your mouth about anything. Really. You can give your opinions, can't you? But if you want to say this is what the world is, you need some experience before you start running your mouth like that. So it's like, of people my own age, and I'm going to be quite general, most people I've met or had anything to do with, and I'm being very general there, have known how to behave themselves. They might have been wicked people, but when they need to, right, they can behave themselves when it suits them. Which is my objection to the way that Sargon starts talking about environment. Basically, he splits it. This is a problem with people who don't know really how to... They don't understand psychology well enough to separate what's been said from the topics and words used and tactics. It becomes about attack and defence and intention and it's a load of lies. It's just a matter of lies. Okay, ignore the lies. Let's look at everything else. Let's hear what the lies are, what they project, what they reflect, but let's not go on this person's flight of fancy. Doesn't quite get that. So he starts to split. And in splitting, he separates environment from genetics, if you like, which is a mistake that loads of people, it's recently actually been highlighted in psychology, that debate that people have, if whether it's one thing or another, is actually a false question. It's like someone decided to fuck with you, because the reality is that you're predetermined by your genetics at a rate of 100%, and by your environment at a rate of 100%. It's not half and half. It's not one or the other. It's 100% of both. They are like this. You can't separate them in the experience of life. So why even try? So it's 100% environment, but it's 100% the person. So it's 100% agency. Carl starts to say, this guy's part and parcel. And I'm like, no, you're wrong. This guy is taking the piss. This guy is exploiting the system, and he's got a point. He's found an exploit, and he's like the whistleblower that gets the exploit closed, if you like. He's the guy from Bolton who steals all of Bolton's jokes and gets famous, and he's Peter Kay. And all the rest of the people in Bolton are like, he stole my act. He's the guy who gets in first that cashes in. He's seen a business opportunity in a way that was inevitable. That'd be an inevitable thing. He'd come along in that someone see that exploit to earn. Sargon taking agency away from this guy is a mistake. He knows what he's doing. He's quite clear in what his goals are. And what he demonstrates is actually a skill set in how to do combat with the enemy that wants to reason with you. I bet any amount of money that when he needs to behave himself and act like a human being because it suits him to do so, all of a sudden he suddenly can. Could probably be quite a charming fellow in the right company. He'll know how to behave himself. That we've seen is acting out. So when this guy goes to court, he's able to play the nice boy to an Oscar-winning performance level. You bet your ass he can. It's a choice. Misled, misguided. Regardless, it's a choice. And it's a matter of that. What is the score with that person? Well, he's been allowed to become incorrigible, as they say, which is like bad beyond redemption, given any opportunity to exploit a strength in a situation. This guy's like a predator. He's feral. And this feral nature is quite well adapted to the world. It's actually make you an alpha predator now that the people have become sheep. It's to be a wolf. A wolf. Now, when you turn people into sheep and wolves come along and look to devour them, you should react all surprised. Now, to say that guy is... because guys who know about, say, the patterns of behaviour and the labels, they would attempt to slap labels on that guy. Or they'll say, well, label, product of environment. So that's to politicise the situation. It's like, if you wanted to politicise the situation with young narcs and the children, in how ruthlessly they'll exploit rules and not obey, will rebel, will actively rebel, will feel hard done by, will take revenge. Kids are terrible for that. They do it. I was a kid once. It was like urban warfare, domestic warfare. So yeah, slap the labels on. It's like, what difference does it make? If you were bothered, you'd have been addressing it as a big deal 10 years ago when that kid was 8. And he might have had a chance of not ending up. He could have ended up any dick he liked, but he wouldn't be one who thought that that was what he was doing and videoing. See, that's the thing. He is one of a couple of thousand kids that are a nuisance to society like that. Thousands. But most of them don't put it on TikTok. That's where there's hypocrisy. That's where you can't in some way say that kid's behaviour is beyond the pale. It's actually quite tame compared to what other people who like to harass and have that kind of fun, things that they actually do that you can read about, that gangs of kids do, where there's no TikTok video. So he's just taken something that was already there and just, I've found a market for our street terror. I've found a market for like harassing vulnerable people. I've got an eye for people I think I can handle in a fight if push comes to shove. I've an idea of who I might be able to frighten. Can't we somehow turn this into money? And there will be some out there, probably that judge who gave him the £200 fine, would be that you've shown some real acumen for, like, genius even. You've got a fine future in it. You're spotting that marketplace in how to make money out of harassing people in the street. You're one for the future. We'll follow your career closely. Boom, £200 fine. So you've got a real career ahead of you. As Nick Buckley said, had been in that situation many, many, many times and walked away. Because he doesn't just act out, he also would know how to play the nice guy. What would I have done differently interviewing that kid is the thing, because I think Piers Morgan didn't do as poorly talking to him as a few have suggested, because he did just let him run his mouth. And when he give it the no, he let him sit there and do the you don't get to speak. He got everyone will have got a little kick out of that. He saw it. It's like, oh, one of them, eh? It doesn't let you even get your words out. Where have we seen this before? And everyone watching it would know people like that. Oh, one of those cunts. So he showed him off real well. It's like he showed him off. It's like it's not actually such a bad move what Piers Morgan did. Piers Morgan wanted to get the maximal rate, sort of, if he wanted the guy to go, or if he wanted to get one past him, the question to ask that kid would be, how many children have you got? I ain't kidding. How many kids have you got, mate? No one's asked you. How many kids have you got aged 18? Other one. You shagging? Excuse me? Yeah, no one is ever gonna, other than your good self, gonna point to, look at that kid, bet your ass he's been sexually active since he was 13. He's a player as well. And it'd be a matter of who watches his videos, who does he get the most validation from? Is he bothered that someone like myself could enjoy it and be like, oh, you're the coolest, or very funny, very, very clever? Would that mean anything to this guy? No. What kind of validation does he want? Girls his age and younger. He's in it for the pussy. So the two go hand in hand like... So he's a player, he's a pimp. 18? It's like he's likely racked up 200 by now. What, John? Yes, he's likely racked up 200 by now. What's he in the game for? Why get money? Why have money? Why need money? Why need validation? Why need respect? Why? Access to the best women. So I'll be asking him, how many kids you got? Are you shagging? Are you shagging around? Saying to him as to and then it'd be, why's that got nothing to do with you? Why's it got nothing to do with you? 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 It'd be a matter of... You know, if we're gonna open this parcel, why not open the whole fucking box? Why not put the pieces together that this kid is like in every way you can be fucked up already. Do you like a drink? What's it got to do with you? I'm 18, I can drink what I want. I'm an adult, I can drink what I want. I can drink what I want. Why? I was drunk. You into drugs, kid? What's it got to do with you? Well, young kids, you know, it's like it's whether you can handle it. I've been smoking weed since I was 9. So why don't we hear the full fucking story? It's like by the time you get past like answer 4, they go off into Crackpot Wonderland and they'll start to lay on the episodes of Breaking Bad. But up until then, it's a matter of show us a picture of the full crackpot. Go on, show us the full crackpot. And know that he's one of many. He's just one that's decided to try to monetize his fucked life. His mother might be watching this video. I'm going to put a name. I'm going to put that Mizzy. Maybe a matter of what a piece of work you've created. Well played. Well done. It's like, how could you have fucked up worse than that? How? But saying that, there are mothers in this world who will deny responsibility for their child that the second it's born. Always been a wrong un. That one of mine. Right from day one. Really? Be it so. Mothers have an incredible influence over their children. Certainly the sons. It's like, mummy's boy is a very, very dangerous man. But the problem for Mizzy is, right, kids who harass people in the street, you go away, find stories of this neck of the woods where people have been like fucking burned alive by dickheads and gangs like that. We did it for a laugh, but it got out of hand. Dicks do fucking bad things to people when they find someone they can get away with it with. Or one of them's trying to impress someone. One of them wants to send a message and they get big ideas and they do fucked up things to people. You look at it, it's worse in the States, I think, than the instances of people getting set on fire. It's like the ultimate humiliation for someone is to beat their ass and then set them alight. So it's like stuff like that goes on, and it's like humans find that kind of behaviour reprehensible. And those who do it and go to prison for it and they're like, oh, don't. But people know that they've been up to all sorts. It's like they will pay a price for that. They won't pay the maximum price for it. But they'll pay. No one gets away with anything like that. Not really. People know and act accordingly. But it's like most jackasses like that who play games like that, you wouldn't know them to see them. Usually the names are printed, aren't they? In the paper when you read about what they did. Or you might, if it was in your neighbourhood, get wind that some local kids were up to no good and have an idea as to who to keep an eye on. It's like, why keep an eye? It's like, because if he sees you walking down the road, when he's walking up it, he knows you're not in, and he knows he can rob your house and there's nobody in. Nobody's defending your stuff. He can break into your shed. He can, if he fancies it, if he wants to. So it's just a matter of when he crosses you in the street, does it suit him in that moment to prey upon you? And sometimes it does. Not always, but sometimes. And even if it's someone like myself who little kids don't tend to do too well against, they can decide to fuck with me if they want to send me a message to teach me a lesson for being somebody who might stand up to them. You know, a kid, I'm reminded of an incident with this very similar kid who played that game with the knife in the pocket, but he had a knife. And he played that same game on me. I'm on my way home from work. Oh, would I have been 17? Idiot kid would have been 16, and he had a mate with him who was like a little Tory stooge. So this lad says, "What's what? I knew you. I know your sister." "Oh, you what?" "I know your sister. I know your sister. I know her name." He's like, "I'm taxing you, and if you don't pay me, she's gonna pay." I'm like, "You what?" "You heard me." This were a kid who weren't from my neighbourhood. And I'm like walking home from work when I used to live with my parents, 17. On streets I've lived on all my life, and this stranger comes up to me saying, "Hand your money over." Basically, he would have settled for being able to take my cigarettes off me. Something that actually quite common thing to happen for someone to try to tax you to take all your cigarettes off you. You just said, "Don't tell me I'm got any." Already been known that they'll have to fight you for them. But not an uncommon thing for someone to come along and try to tax, but to play the knife in the pocket game with me, saying, "Right, come on, hand over." Well, I don't take to that kind of treatment well at all, right? And the lad with the knife, right, he was in front of me here, and his mate who was backing him up stood next to him to his right. And what I did was, because he had a knife, I didn't want to tangle with him, and I wanted to surprise them both. I drew back to hit deliberately where I'd be seen, where the guy would have an option to, do something. So I drew back, and instead of punching the guy with the knife, I sucker punched the guy stood next to him and smashed all his fucking mouth and had him bleeding from all sorts. Hit him sucker punch, full smash in the mouth, bang, as hard as I could, and then just bowled straight past this guy with the knife, right? So what did he do? Well, he stabbed me in the back. I was wearing at the time, because I used to work at a motorcycle dealership, we used to get like really, really good terms for buying stuff from the shop. We used to be able to get things at like cost price and be able to pay them off weekly. So at the time I was wearing this, what was called a Frank Thomas make motorcycle gear, still in the world, good stuff. And he tried to stab me in the kidney, but I actually had a full Kevlar pad there because I was wearing a motorcycle jacket. I'm like, for real? Didn't get through. Fucking felt it though. But the blade didn't get through. Felt it. I'm like, fucking hell. So from then on, it's like I've set off and I've just carried on walking from there, and they've stalked me like all the way home. So I get home understanding that at that time of life, my father would have been about 38 years old, and by way of being fit to fucking fight someone, he fit that still, and he would, you know, earn his money at the time, you know, moving things around with a shovel. So I'm like, oh well, if he wants to take it up, he said, I'll just go and have a word with my dad and says, Dick with a knife fucking wants it with me. Hey, do you fancy back in my plate? And yeah, he's of that nature as to where he'd take it as a written invitation to go out and fucking murder those guys. So I'm like, I'm not so bothered, I'll go out and I'll have a walk around. So I goes home and they're still out hanging around outside. I'm like, they're not leaving me alone, and this guy's like now crying that I fucking battered his mate. And then we did nothing. So I ends up having a word with my dad. He didn't take it anything like what I expected. I thought, it's like, yeah, but you fucking smacked his mate, hadn't you? It's like, you proper fucking weighed him in. So yeah, he's like, but he did tax me and gave me my younger sister. She's 5 years younger than me. She'd be 13, a schoolgirl. He's saying he's going to target her if I don't pay tribute. You don't get away with mouthing off like that, do you? And if I had have allowed him to get away with mouthing off like that, I wouldn't be my father's fucking son. That's a far worse crime to let that go unanswered in the world of the working class. Like, if you don't stand up for yourself, you're going to get fucking bullied your entire life. So what we did in the end, right? Call the police. So, calls the police. Told them the tale. I actually got shit off my dad for not taking the knife off the kid. She took it off him, and it said, yeah, but that had just been me with a knife. It could have been any knife. You could just go in the kitchen and get a knife and say, I took this off him, this is the fucking weapon. But my dad's like, you should have took it off him. Oh, stupid. Cops come, tell them the tale, right? Blow by blow. I'm like, yeah, you can, I'll admit pleading guilty, punching his mate in the face. If you take it like mitigation, that he did threaten to harm a member of my family if I didn't pay him. He was holding me up. It was a stick up. A street robbery attempt. And then when I've not played ball and I've fought back, he's decided to fucking stab me. And by reason of jacket with hole in, but he's fucking stabbed me. Doesn't that count for anything at all? Cops looked at that, right, as you're wasting our time. You don't ring us again. That was how the cops dealt with that. And I'm like, well, what about this fucking idiot going around the streets thinking he can hold people up, threaten to fucking stab them if they don't, and go after their people if they don't hand over their money and cigarettes. Nobody else is set out. So I knew the guy's name because he was a problem child at my sister's school. He was famous at the school she ran. He was like the school fucking idiot. Like the school idiot, a disturbed kid. And his threats were very believable. I told the cops who they were dealing with, and they're like, well, we know him. And that was it. End of case. Well, we know him. Well, we know him. If we see him knocking about around here, we'll move him on. We know him. It's like, you get dicks play games like that in the street and you think, hey, hang on a minute. It's like, you're somehow breaking the law. It's like, you can't do this to me. It's like, right, try ringing the cops when it happens. At least nowadays, where they can play one card or another, the police have actually got basis to do something about that kind of situation, where they didn't before. So that's how they pass everything now. But you try getting someone fucking sorted out who's done that, who's threatened to kill you, who's attempted to rob you, who's tried to tax you, who's tried to play a game like this with you. If you call the police on them, you'll bring the heat down on you because they know that they can't do nothing about it. The kid will deny it, will say that you're the one with the problem, will demand that the police investigate the victim. Make accusations of some ism, racism. He doesn't like me because I'm bi. He's got it in for me. He's trying to use you as a weapon against me. So they're not interested in playing games. You get nothing. Your defence in the law against a harassment from a practiced and fucking expert level manipulator and fucking violent psychopath, you got no protection against it at all. Society does not protect you. The only things that are likely to protect you are your phone, videoing them, but the phone never stopped anyone getting a beating. And a phone, if you take a video on a phone and the phone is taken from you and then thrown in a river, it will never see the light of day. If you streamed it, it'd be somewhere though, won't it? But you really, the only way you have in this life of defending yourself against such fucking people, if they decide today's the day that they're going to fuck with you, is to make sure that today's the day they fucking meet their maker. You must always stand. It's like, these sort of people who you say sorry and they say sorry's not good enough and then punish your ass. You submit to those people, give them what they want, and you've just opened the fucking floodgates. They will never leave you alone. He fell for it. We didn't have to do anything. Human beings can be very much like hyenas, but far crueler and more patient. You've got to be willing to die. You've got to recognise that you're not backing down. It's like, if you want to do it, you're going to have to do it. If you want to rob me, you are going to have to stab me. You are going to have to fucking kill me. And most of them decide that they're not going to. Especially when you're as big as me. But there are those who aren't as big as me and they're fucked. See, privilege, when they talk about privilege, they talk about it wrong. There's other kinds of privilege. The greatest privilege in the world to have is to be beautiful. You'll get away with murder your whole fucking life. But the next best privilege is to be big. Strong. Because then at least you've got a choice, haven't you? You've always got a choice. So I think big and strong privilege is only one place behind beauty in the real stakes of privilege. Intelligence be a lowly third. And then after that, every other way you want to split it. Beautiful people win. People who are strong enough and big enough to have a choice, they do pretty okay too. So it's like, I don't know. I do know what it is to be preyed upon because I've been young. But it's something that's happened a long time ago for me, as to where you reach a certain level as you grow up, and us boys know, most of us, if you've ended up over 6 foot, you've had a time in your life when people stopped hitting you. About age 13, 14. People would stop hitting you. The teachers would stop hitting you. Adults stop hitting you. Right? And it's when suddenly they get the notion that you might fucking be able to hit them back. That you might actually be able to fucking hurt them. They suddenly stop. They suddenly stop doling out violence when there's actually a repercussion for it. Or a potential for counterattack. You see, I do live in a twisted world as to where there was a chap I was in school with, in the same class as, right? Didn't get along with him. Turns out he had a difficult time as a child. I had a difficult time as a child, but could be seen he had a difficult time too. And we didn't get on, but I didn't dislike the guy, and from time to time he was alright, but he used to like to play me, and he used to think he could get the better of me. So we had a kind of tit for tat thing going on from time to time, and I'll always admire him in my way for when there was a games teacher when we were all about 13. There was a PE teacher who used to be quite liberal, hitting people, and sometimes he'd just give you. He was a guy who used to like slapping people really hard when they were naked. Leaving a big red hand on them. But he wouldn't be just, generally, if he felt you needed or you were being in any way, any excuse he could get, he was laying hand on a kid, giving you a slap. And a guy my age, 13, up against a guy who must have been 50 if he were a day. He held his own against him in a fight for about a minute. Took him on. Held his own, 13-year-old. The guy had 37 years on him. And I'm like, that teacher, he never. That was his last year of being a teacher. He done. Got rid of him. When he'd been teaching middle school, aged 10 to 13, and he'd been able to liberally slap kids all over the place, and none of them do nothing about it. Ever. Nothing happened. He'd be allowed to have a reputation for people who slapped people around. Well, one kid decided to stand up to him. That was him. Gone. One kid stood up to him and he was fucking gone. It's like nobody ever had to have him as a teacher ever again. Because one kid stood up to him. And at the time it was seen as so naughty and wrong, and teachers at school didn't even have the machinery to fucking handle it. Couldn't even deal with it. One of the kids has retaliated to being beaten on. It's not a good look. One of the kids has retaliated. That story gets back, when a kid retaliates from a teacher being violent, right? Teacher punching them or hitting them with something. Kid retaliates. It's always pupil strikes teacher, never kid retaliates to get beaten. Ever. Always. Pupil strikes teacher. Always. It's like school, a fucking joke. A standing joke. You know the people who I feel sorry for at my school, who I went to school with. I don't know how they've lived. The lives have probably, ended up better than me. You can measure it a different way. They've gone down a different path, but there were people I went to school with who gave a fuck about their own futures. I never did. And plenty of us never did. It's like, but I wasn't particularly like disruptive or, mean. But there were kids who were in the same school as me who be in my same sort of peer group, because I was in like top group for everything but maths, and only because of that I'd not been given any maths tuition at primary school after about the age of 7. They just never did anymore. So I was always behind in mathematics because the school I went to was absolute dog shit, and there was no teachers that were happy. So they used to just give you these workbooks and say, fill that out. So you just get the one of the lads sat next to you and you just copy all his answers down, and then you just fucking put it back and say, right, we've done our maths. And they never checked. I once they used to give us these maths books, exercise books at primary school. And they'd say, do your maths books, right? And they never checked. I didn't complete one in over a year. And just fucking like, what are you going to do? Nothing. And they didn't do anything. What did primary schools I went to? Teachers were interested in teaching what they were interested in. So I had, for 2 years of juniors, teachers who were more interested in singing and song than anything else. Religious instruction and singing and song is what they were into. Don't remember any real misbehaviour in their classes, but I don't remember any fucking maths being done either. That thing where they brainwash you as an infant with that times tables thing. Never fucking memorised it like you're supposed to. Couldn't master that you're just supposed to memorise this. What? So I took to multiplication on an individual basis, and it put me years behind because these other kids had all been brainwashed with these formulas. So I hadn't been brainwashed with the formulas, so it's a matter of, he comes across as being a little bit slow doing the maths because he does them all long-handed because he hasn't learned his times tables. They used to talk about having learned your times tables and ridicule you as if you couldn't tie your own fucking shoelaces. He hasn't learned his times tables. You mean to tell us you haven't learned your times tables? And you're like this. Be 6-year-old and they'd be saying, you're going to have to get good at this, John. You'll be learning your times tables next year. Fucking brainwashing cunts. Traumatising. School is a disaster. It's a complete joke. It's like there's government oversight of what's on the curriculum, but as soon as that door closes, you're at the mercy of some fucking lunatic teacher. Or in more recent years, they have these teaching assistants where there's 2 in the room. So it's like, do you know what they'll do? They'll put 2 teachers in a room and call one a teaching assistant, and they'll have 35 kids in the class, and they'll say class sizes are at 35 when they ideally are around 30. And it's like, well, you've got 2 teachers in the room, so class sizes, you could just start with a class, couldn't you, and have like near 20? But no, they count them as teaching assistants, not real teachers. What's the difference between a teacher and a teaching assistant? And the one's been on a fucking course and the other one hasn't. One's been to university and maybe the other one's got some kind of college diploma. Some national vocational qualification. It's like, are you people for real? And the answer is yes, they are. And they've got massive influence over how the way things turn out. What if you've got one of these teachers who's got a fucking class full of dunces, but all the parents come round and they're like, oh, she's lovely, she's so clever, she makes us funny, makes us laugh. Oh yeah, everyone loves her, it's great, and she's so understanding, she gets it, she already understands. We're talking about a 5-year-old. Where everyone's great, everything's brilliant, everyone's great, and it's like, no, academically these kids are falling behind because you cannot judge them. You haven't got it within you to say, look, you need to do better, are we? We've identified a problem. Maybe your child might maybe a bit mentally irregular. It's never the teacher that's the problem. It's always that the kid's mentally ill. Funny old thing, isn't it? It's never that you've got teachers that are violent. It's that you've got kids that are violent in the class. The tremendous hypocrisy I faced in primary and middle school. And then it got to, the upper schools, the sort of high schools, and they just didn't care. So there's no oversight at all. It's like no one saw nothing going on ever. As to where if teachers were real people with fucking souls, it's like they want at some time in their life have to answer for all the things they know that don't say, and keep it as gossip amongst teachers, and will enable kids, young adults, in ruining their own lives with what they're not willing to say, with the secrets they're willing to keep from the kids' parents. And it's always been going on that, not just over the LGBT, with all kinds of things like smoking, things like drinking as a kid, things like sex as a kid, things like being 13-year-old and hanging around with adults, for, that kind of thing. They know all about it, they hear all about it, and they keep it all secret, and they actually enable all of it. Teachers. So it's like they use that power for all kinds of nefarious things in their days, but they were always their own nefarious things. So you get one teacher who was all about anti-animal cruelty, you get one who was all about the environment, one who's frightened of nuclear weapons, you get one who's frightened of the force of capitalism, you've got some religious sort of zealot figure who was saying it's just evil, we've just got to keep fighting Satan, and they'd be like, but that's not allowed, what you're saying, and all that. They would all have their own method of brainwashing you and fucking trying to turn you into some kind of zealot for whatever the cause is that is a reflection of what they feel their lives are a failure in becoming teachers, in that they failed to make any impact. So what they've done is they've decided to teach the fucking kids that they might make an impact in their stead. You can't tell me that no teacher in the world thinks that way, when I'd be personally thinking that every single one of them thinks that. Mizzy, right? Find me the headmaster of his primary school and let me have a word with her. See what she thinks of him. See what his middle school farm tutor thinks of him. They'll say, oh, he was such a good boy. Because you bet your ass knows how to behave himself when he has to. Is an agent, can't be held unaccountable because of psychosis and because of narcissistic issues like omniscience or like what's the word I'm looking for, hypermania, things like that. No, knows how to behave himself when he has to, is able to talk himself out of trouble most of the time and be very apologetic and harmless. He's a moral agent. He's a deliberate moral agent. He's a guy who's playing it like a card trick And then others have come along and say, oh, well, no, he's a product of society and he's not really an agent because he's just been influenced by. And it's like, you've fallen for his fucking act. You've fallen into the trap that protects him from ever really being held accountable in the eyes of those that ostensibly matter, you know, with the way the thinking goes, the psychological, the meta. Managed to trick you into thinking he's not got any agency. Massive mistake they make. There'd be, I'm hoping to have some conversations in the future about the old subject of psychology, the way that it's framed, as to where I've got some real objections to how it's in its form, as to where we started talking about cluster B personality disorders using labels that we haven't actually just trained people on how to actually manipulate people with personality disorder traits that they themselves don't recognize that you might recognize in them, and they be there. As to you've created a more knowledgeable generation of grifters. I'm partly responsible for that, I think. You've created a generation of grifters, and you've also, in attributing personality disorders, robbed them of agency and given them cover, given them mitigation. Said, well, it's not my fault, I've got a personality disorder. I can't be held accountable, I've got a personality disorder. You burn your fucking house to the ground, right? Turn up in a courtroom and have a psychologist say that you've got borderline personality disorder. There's a fairly good chance you won't go down for it. It's a joke. People are accountable. And that's from someone who knows about this thing, this personality disorder thing. But I always maintain, right, that's pathological. That's about detective work, not active. Not an active understanding of I think I might know what they will do next. Yeah? It might give you an idea, but it's not accurate. It's a red herring. It's for you to think that someone else, because of a pathology or a pattern of behaviour, is somehow lesser or less capable, and they're not. They're actually a straight ahead of you. You're wasting time trying to describe what cunts are while cunts are being cunts. Yeah, I think the upswing in, because people are obviously they're going to do it, aren't they? They're going to, as soon as there's an internet, people are going to start trying to learn about why and what and how, and they'll find a lot of narcissists. But wherever you have human behaviour and have humans who end up getting abandoned, mistreated, there's always going to be narcissistic patterns of behaviour, and it's because of simple Hegelian dialectics between individuals. Someone's been abusive, someone's been abused. In what form will this abuse take? Well, we're human, verbal, physical, emotional, sexual. So it's always going to look like the same pattern of behaviour because the players are always the same. The processes are always the same. What hurts me will hurt you. So I think I think certain folks could be said to have created a pseudo-scientific grift that's good for knowledge, right, and understanding, but not for action. That's just the enemy of action and is a smokescreen, and also ignores the fact that in my experience of it, right, Narcissists are the biggest victims of narcissistic abuse, whether historical or real time. Narcissists themselves are the biggest victims of it. The biggest victims. They hurt the most, but they're the ones who will have it be known to the world that they do not care, and that's just like a fuck you to all of their discarded. It's to devalue. Not true. Hyper emotional as opposed to don't care. Suppressing part of them that knows the difference between right and wrong that they're currently at war with. I'm a thing about that. I don't think you can just delete that human programming that the creature is. I don't think you can think your way past it. I don't think there's any answer to the chemistry. There's human versus human. But it's like, no, it's like no matter how twisted and fallen the society gets, right? People will always have agency. They'll always have a choice. They might say something different and they might demonstrate patterns. They've always got a choice, man. All the times you didn't do something that you might. You had a choice every time, and it's like you can't use mental health to take agency away as to say, well, he's not really accountable. There's nothing to learn from this person. So, no, you're just not willing to listen to him. You're going to have problems in this country with highly creative and confounding would-be mini wizards and magicians like this guy. Masters of illusion, enemies of reason and agents of chaos. And if you don't get at it game, they're going to confound you and they'll make you ineffectual. They'll make everything about them. And while they're doing that, you know, those who really demand our attention and will just continue to do what they do. It's like it's a thing that's going to explode, and it be what's with these people, and it's like, well, there's a mental health epidemic. It's like, no, wrong. They were the right words 15 years ago. Now it's metastasized into agents of chaos and terror. And people with that feeling about them as to being so entitled that there's nothing that they can't do. Because, you know, the world owes them a favour. The world owes them compensation. And they want theirs. And depending on what theirs is, it's going to be some kind of mixture between attention, adulation, and vaginas. Isn't it? Ask him how many kids he's got. Somebody ask him.